Wall Street wonders if Bob Iger is the man that can fix the Walt Disney Company. Now, of course, Bob Iger thinks he can. But then again, he never seems to want to admit that he is the man that broke it in the first place. He is the man, Bob Iger, who put the Walt Disney Company in the bad position that it's in right now. He is responsible for the string of failures at the box offices because these movies were all greenlit under Bob Iger. But leave it to Iger to take the stage at any opportunity and blame somebody else, this time Bob Chapek, and even went down the road so far as to start talking about why they didn't want to advertise on Twitter anymore. And then, in a surprise, Elon Musk showed up and had something to say about that.
If somebody's going to try to blackmail me with advertising, blackmail me with money, go f yourself. Go f yourself. Is that clear? I hope it is. Hey, Bob. If you're in the audience.
Renegade Online. Well, folks, welcome back. Another great day here at Valiant Renegade. It's good to see everybody out there once again. And if you are like one of the many folks watching this video, not yet subscribed to this channel, please take a moment and turn that little red subscribe button to gray. Hit that like button, hit that notification bell, share this sucker out on the social medias, and of course, please do leave a comment before you head out the door today. Make sure to join us every Sunday at 6 p.m. Eastern for the live show right here on Valiant Renegade, which you're typically on with that one, Pro, right?
Absolutely. I try to be there each and every time and suggest others do as well.
Well, we had to step in a little early this week together to cover this one, and it started out one way, went another. We've talked about that Disney annual stockholders report that was filed last week on the 21st of November.
The 10K.
Some of the interesting language that was in it, like we don't really know where the audience is going to be a few years out from when we greenlight a movie, and sometimes they aren't successful because of that, or changing technologies. We just basically Disney doesn't seem to know what they're doing at this point. We're going to throw spaghetti against the wall and see what sticks, but don't blame us if it doesn't. Right?
It's amazing how we can predict where the market will be, but they cannot.
Yeah, and we talked about that Sunday, where my theory is I don't believe the market has moved at all. I think it's right where it was back in 2019. Granted, some people may want to stay home from theaters and not go see certain things or wait for it on streaming, but there are plenty of great examples out there, including one that was distributed by Disney itself, Avatar: The Way of Water, that shows that people do want to show up to theaters if they're given a quality product. There's a lot of things that seem to be not working well for Bob Iger. And I mean a lot of things. A lot of things not working well for Disney.
The worst
right now.
November for a single entertainment company in the history of cinema, Valiant. The worst month in cinematic history, capping off the worst year in terms of financial losses. You've covered that to great fanfare.
So this is one of a few articles recently. Bob Iger saying the Marvels had little supervision. Disney's made too many sequels. Yet at the same time, didn't Bob Iger talk a few months ago how they had to get back to making more sequels? They had to make Frozen 3. They had to make Toy Story 5. They had to...
Bob Iger, let's get real. Bob Iger has gone nuts. Bob Iger is ready to blame anything and everything other than Bob Iger for what has happened. And Bob Iger is the impetus for the fall of Disney. No other person was there to transform the company in the way that Bob did with the Reimagine Tomorrow and all of the changes that happened with the Story Matters group. Mm-hmm. Nobody else made that happen except Bob. And nobody else came in there and attempted to remove the new CEO who took the company to highs for the stock never seen before, going over $200. Nobody else came in and sabotaged while they were still working there and maintaining an office other than Bob. But Bob does not want to be the person who's in charge and culpable for the fall of Disney.
And that's just it. I mean, the constant talking out of both sides of the mouth. And here with, we did too many projects here, and it diluted Marvel, and that's what was causing the quality to suffer, which, again, another statement that I don't understand, because...
It's what he said about Star Wars, Valiant. It's exactly what he said about Star Wars.
The same problem with Star Wars, and yet, Pro, I can't get past the fact that each one of these projects, if I'm not mistaken, would have had its own writer and perhaps writing team, its own director or showrunner or something along those lines, right? So, I mean, if Kevin Feige's job is simply to oversee things in terms of the narrative connectivity that should be between the different projects, I don't see why a team of various writers and directors doing all these projects separately would create such a problem to where it seems like nobody could write, nobody could
These
direct.
are ills that only the Walt Disney Company seems to face. It's
It
only the
really
Walt
does.
Disney Company that suffers from fatigue, right? It started as Star Wars fatigue, then it became Marvel fatigue, then it became superhero fatigue, then it became animation fatigue. It's only Disney that features that. It's only Disney that features the issue of, well, families are waiting for streaming. They don't want to go to the box office. No, they want to go see Trolls Band Together. They want to go see Mario. They want to go see Minions. They want to see Puss in Boots. They'll go see Five Nights at Freddy's, even when it's on streaming simultaneous. Only Disney has that issue. And that's what we're led to believe by the analysts, by Bob Iger, by all of these folks. And what they're doing essentially is they are whistling not by the graveyard, they're whistling straight into the graveyard as they take Mickey Mouse in there to throw him in 6 feet under.
So it would seem, does it not? I mean, I can't get past this. And then yesterday they have this seminar, this conference, another one of these media conferences put on in part by the New York Times, and of course we got yet again Bob Iger taking an opportunity to throw Bob Chapek under the bus.
I was disappointed in what I was seeing, both during the transition period when I was still there and while I was out. But I really worked hard at distancing myself from it because, one, I couldn't do anything about it. In a way, it wasn't my business at all, really. It was his business to run. And I was not happy with what I was seeing. I worked hard to build the company into what it was over that long period of time. I was proud of those accomplishments. It hurts when something that you've put your heart and soul into and that you care about so much is going through a difficult time.
So there you have it. He was very displeased with the direction of things after he left, which was effectively not even quite 11 months of Bob Chapek.
He never left.
It's bizarre to me. But he seems to just throw all of the blame on Chapek for everything that's gone wrong, or at least under his breath is what he's trying to, the impression he's trying to give, it seems. I mean, what do you think about this?
The dog ate my homework, and the dog is Bob Chapek. That is Bob Iger's not so deep plan of tossing away all the blame off of one bad Bobby two shower. Dang it, Bob, it's too hot. And let me say this too. He probably picked the right person in Bob Chapek in order to blame, not to succeed him, but in order to blame, because Bob Chapek is almost certainly under a non-disclosure agreement after having left the Walt Disney Company ceremoniously and not voluntarily. That said, I would say that Bob Iger learned a very good lesson yesterday, Mr. Renegade, and that is that he probably shouldn't take pot shots at the richest man in the world who is not under said non-disclosure agreement to respond to the ever effervescent and always correct Bob Iger.
Yeah, and he really didn't help himself. I think he added to this, which was a piece that came out from the Wall Street Journal.
You mean he did not lower the noise yesterday?
No, I don't think he lowered the noise one itty bit. And I mean,
the volume dial has never been higher from the man who said lower the noise. We have never seen anything like this before.
It's so bizarre. And I mean, this was a story in pictures from the Wall Street Journal about a week ago, talking about inside Bob Iger's roller coaster year at Disney. And I know you're going to talk about this in a video shortly later today, but one of the first things they talk about is the stock chart. What happened when Iger left, when Iger came back. I mean,
if you look at this, so that chart going back, the highest it ever was under Bob Chapek. And if you look, the onslaught of criticisms that began in 2022 to remove Bob Chapek, that, of course, we believe that happened under the direction of Bob Iger. We believe it was coordinated. There's been lots of information out there that would suggest that is the case. And you can see, investors out there, if you're watching this video, Wall Street, if you're watching, the cost of removing Bob Chapek so that Bob Iger could be back in the lead at the House of Mouse. Take a look at what that cost was and find out who bears the burden of it.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, obviously, it's not just that. You've got Peltz that's still out there, which, by the way, we're going to get to the Elon Musk here thing in a bit. Elon Musk thing here in a bit. But one thing that strikes me is that if you think you're going to have problems with Nelson Peltz and $2 billion, $3 billion worth of Disney stock, imagine if Elon Musk decided to get really mad.
Elon Musk could throw, without even having to think about it, Elon Musk could throw $5 billion at Peltz and say, take them down, please. I've had enough of them.
I know. And look, the roller coaster's going down again over a picture of Ariel, or a new Ariel.
It's a cute roller coaster, but in reality, this stock has not had much of a lift hill ever.
No, but I mean, this is the kind of thing that, I mean, it goes through, and it's really a great piece. It's been a mess for Disney, and of course, bringing back some old faces to try to help bail them out of the mess, to see what kind of things they might be able to sell off, or how to change distribution with things like ABC and ESPN. And then, of course, Iger gets on stage yesterday and talks about how, oh, well, we're not really going to sell ABC. I mean, again,
let me ask you this, Valiant. Do you think that Iger has, maybe he's lost his touch? I don't think Iger of 20 years ago would have stepped in it this badly. I mean, to go back to the Elon Musk thing, which I know that we're going to talk about, but this is more focused on Iger himself. Just consider the level of foolishness, the level of faux pas to get onto the stage and criticize openly, and from an air of arrogance, the richest man in the world who's about to take the stage after you, who is there listening to you, and think that he's going to take his just desserts from you and not respond. And that's going to lower the volume. This is not the Iger that we saw prior to his leaving Disney.
And granted, he was thrown a question about, I think, the Twitter issue, and he responded to it. But I mean, to begin with, it was a bad mistake, right? The whole thing with Disney pulling its advertising off of Twitter, I find, frankly, incredibly hypocritical. They still have their official Disney Twitter account. They still have ESPN Twitter accounts. They still have an account for every film or television product that they put on Disney Plus. I mean, they still have a big Twitter presence. But no. We're going to pull advertising because of let's just call it a very, very deceptive and heavily manipulated story that was literally created out of thin air by Media Matters.
Well, I frankly, Valiant, am glad that they pulled their advertising, because it seems to have gone very well for their box office. Look how well Wish performed simultaneous to Disney deciding they did not need to run advertisements on a major social media platform. I bet the investors are thrilled at this very principled decision.
I mean, a $500 million loss in 1 month on 2 bombed out movies.
You couldn't do that if you tried, ladies and gentlemen. You could not do that if you tried.
No, Bob Iger seems to want to blame everybody else but himself. But on the Twitter front, but you're right. So Bob Iger gets out there and says, well, it wasn't a good fit, this or that. It seems like everybody on that side of the political spectrum, Bob Iger's side of it, looking for any excuse they can to get off of Twitter, because they're mad that Twitter is no longer, in their mind, theirs, right? It's no longer manipulated by one side. It's no longer manipulated by, some might say, government in many cases.
It's outside of the oligarchical cronyism closet, and they want it back in there.
Right. I mean, they don't like the fact that it now truly is a much more of a free speech platform than it was before. And Disney decided they didn't want to be part of it. And Elon Musk got on stage, as you mentioned, just a few minutes after Bob. And, well, he had this to say.
If somebody's going to try to blackmail me with advertising, blackmail me with money, go yourself. But go yourself. Is that clear? I hope it is. Hey, Bob, if you're in the audience.
That about sums it up, doesn't it?
I think maybe don't slap the wrist of the man whose own personal net worth is greater than the entire corporation you've run into the ground. That might be a good idea for Bob for the future.
Yeah, and Bob Iger seems very concerned about things that just really aren't that important right now. I think instead of making excuses and making themselves look ridiculous in actual earnings reports or annual stockholder reports, even to the point where you're getting the attention of U.S. senators that are talking about how bad things are at your company. I mean, look, Disney has a lot of things that are broken. A lot of things that are broken. I don't know if there's really anything still there that's working, at least not working well. Who is to blame for all of this? I mean, do you think Bob Iger is ever going to take any personal responsibility? I mean, these projects that we're talking about that we see fail in the theaters over and over and over again, I mean, they were all greenlit by whom?
The commentary class that cheerleaded the fall of Disney because they supported everything that Disney did because they saw a grand utopia ahead where they could propagandize children and families using the most beloved entertainment company of all time. The same folks who wanted to see transformative change in the vision of Walt Disney's behemoth entertainment complex. And so they went about changing the very fabric of its being. They now say, those analysts, those entertainment pundits, they now say that the issue is the market. The market has changed, and no one could have seen this coming. And that's what Disney has adopted again in the SEC filing that you're mentioning.
Mm-hmm.
I would argue that the transformation came when Bob Iger decided that he might want to run for president. And Bob Iger, though he did not, he set the groundwork by introducing radical, very far left principles into that corporation, much farther than most corporations have ever adopted. And in doing so, he created a poison pill that is very, very difficult to remove now from the company. We're talking about Reimagine Tomorrow. We're talking about the Story Matters group and far, far more at this point. And the issue there is that not only did they transform the company and destroy their major franchises in Star Wars and Marvel and Disney Animation, but for those who are out there now saying, well, they can turn it around, it's not so bad, this is Disney after all, I would submit to you that the problem too is that when this environment at this company changed and when the direction changed, a vast number of geniuses, irreplaceable geniuses, walked out the door, either voluntarily or involuntarily. You all know the names: George Lucas, John Lasseter, but there are so many names that you don't hear about. So many people who contributed and had the wisdom and the knowledge, the institutional intellect that they had gathered over decades, and you can't replace that once they're gone.
No,
they're
the
just
entire
gone.
brain trust at Pixar, as a matter of fact. I mean, or at least the top guys, and many of the middle level guys too.
That's right. And so what we're looking at now, Valiant, is a team that was operating with the highest level seniors, okay, to make a high school basketball or football comparison. And now folks want them to just turn around and start making great stuff again with a new team that's out there. And it's just the JV team. And it's not even the best of the JV team. It's the backups. And I'm sorry, they may try their best, and we may want them to succeed. They might not have the resources to do so. They still have James Cameron. They still have some of the folks at Marvel who might be able to pull things off, like Deadpool 3 has a shot. But outside of that, they're really going to struggle to recapture the magic because they kicked the magic out.
Well, like we've talked about before, the best things that Disney has under its umbrella are the things that it doesn't even own or make. Bluey on Disney Plus, Avatar, The Way of Water in the box office. Again, not owned by Disney, totally owned and controlled by James Cameron and Lightstorm Entertainment. They made the bulk of that box office money, not Disney. From the standpoint of they can produce products, at least for now, that Disney can still distribute as long as they have the rights to distribute them. That can change down the road. And it may, who knows? But imagine if those two properties were to exit. I mean, then what does Disney have? As you said, it's relying on a very depleted brain trust. I mean, the talent pool is woefully empty. And
this should be a warning, Valiant. This should be an utter warning to everybody. And if you're watching this video and you're not someone who has been following the Walt Disney Company closely for years, such as we have, let us just say that there is an application here for you in whatever area of expertise you have. Do not let these partisan activists, these nut jobs who don't believe in meritocracy, do not let them into whatever institution you love. The Walt Disney Company was the most beloved, most successful, unstoppable force of creativity for decades since the Disney Renaissance. You have to go back to the Little Mermaid in 1989. And then they were a powerhouse with Toy Story and with so much during the 90s and then in the 2000s and then for the last decade. And in just, depending on how you want to measure this, some people say it took 6 years. Some people say it only took 2 years. By bringing in these programs, these DEI, ESG programs that went farther than other corporations, once they did that, they destroyed this company in less than half a decade. Let that be a warning, because if that will happen to Disney, I promise you it will happen to your community. It will happen to the corporations that you invest in. It will happen to your state. It will happen to nations. Do not let anti-meritocracy morons into the things that create the things that you love. And when folks out there are commentating and suggesting, oh, we should do this, you point to Disney now and say, no, that's what happens. And we don't like that.
Yeah, and I think we pretty well established at this point, no matter what the media is trying to pad or cover up when it comes to Bob Iger's failures, he broke Disney. This idea that he came back to save it from Chapek, and a lot of this is Chapek's fault. And as you very correctly pointed out earlier, this idea that Chapek really can't even respond very much to something like that, thanks to legal obligations, than when he headed out the door, or forced out the door, as it were. But we know Iger definitively broke this. Is Bob Iger and the board of directors, which of course they just added a couple of new faces to. We'll talk about that more on Sunday. Is Bob Iger capable and his team capable of fixing any of this?
Bob Iger doesn't want to fix this. Bob Iger wants to have transmuted this company into something fundamentally different and be rewarded with an increasing stock. The problem for Bob Iger is that his vision for Disney does not match the market's vision for Disney. And until we get a mea culpa, until we get Disney falling before the market and saying, we messed up and we're going to change, all the writings in all the world about creative focus and about the streaming paradigm shift in the market, none of that is going to matter until this company recognizes we made our brand unsafe for families. We tarnished the trust between moms and dads and allowing us to present our material unsupervised to their children. We have made people second guess and look at reviews for our box office movies prior to going to see them. Whereas Once Upon a Time Valiant, if it had the label Disney on it and it came out at Thanksgiving, it didn't matter what was on. Yep. Folks went to go see it. Now, the only way you can look at it, and Elon Musk said in that same conference yesterday, he said they're already boycotting Disney. When asked, should there be a boycott of Disney, he said, they're already boycotting Disney. The richest man in the world is right. That is how devastatingly bad the company has been run, to the point that families who have generations within them that have come to trust and love the stories of Disney are soft boycotting this entire enterprise.
Yeah, and I think the big thing for Disney is that for those that aren't, as you say, soft boycotting it, it comes down to the point of what they are creating just isn't compelling enough for people to go see.
And a soft boycott, I'll say this too, a soft boycott, and I think John Trent termed that first, so I want to give him credit. Mm-hmm. A soft boycott is much more dangerous to Disney than a hard boycott. A hard boycott would be when people are actually organizing and reaching out and say, we need to boycott Disney and all that. What we say when we say a soft boycott is, it is organically happening intrinsically inside families without having to reach out to others and say anything at all. People they just know. And it's building now into their purchase patterns. Hey, you want to get this Disney thing? You want to get this Disney princess for your niece? I don't know. I don't know if they watch Disney stuff anymore. Let's go check out, Tinker Toys or Legos or whatever. That's the issue.
It is. And that's the most dangerous position that Disney could be in, is that the audience that has been paying its bills now for decades have become completely apathetic towards its products. And that's effectively where we are. So Pro, thanks for joining us. Send everybody over to your video that'll be debuting here shortly. Make sure you check out WDW Pro. Make sure you check out That Park Place. Pro, thanks for joining us. Good to see you.
Happy to be here and happy to watch you continue, Valiant, to put Hollywood through the financial lens. And it seems like that's a very popular thing to do these days.
Isn't it? Especially with Disney. Thanks for joining us, folks. Until next time, take care. Make sure you're subscribed to Valiant Renegade and join us every Sunday at 6 p.m. Eastern for the live show.